Final professor. Satya Sundar Sethi, Professor Satya Sundar Sethi, Satya Sundar Sethi. बस काम हो गया. मैं just announce कर देता हूँ आपको. Pranam, very good morning to all of you. This is the second day of the seminar. We'll start with academic session, having renowned and very respected speaker, Professor R.C. Pradhan, who is the former member secretary of ICPR and head and professor of the Department of Philosophy, HU. And second speaker, uh, Professor N.N. Chakravarti, who is also the former member secretary of ICPR and former head and professor of Rabindra Bharati University. And we have a very renowned chairperson, Professor D.N. Tiwari. As we all know, he's a renowned professor in India and abroad. I can request all of them to have their seat on the dais. Yes. Now we have convener Dr. Kalpana Yadav, assistant professor of this department. He's going to convene the session. Now the mic is over to her.
Thank you, Dr. Rajibu. Good morning to all of you. The session is being started now, and I'm Kalpana Yadav, Assistant Professor in the Department of Philosophy and Religion, Banaras Hindu University. So here, I request Professor Godabri sir to kindly felicitate our President Chairperson, Professor D.N. Tiwari sir, with garland, shawl, and memento. Thank you, sir. Now I request Professor Ranjan Panda to kindly felicitate Professor R.C. Pradhan with garland and shawl. Please come, Satya Sundar Reddy sir, please come. I will call you for felicitation. Thank you, sir. Next, I request Professor Satya Sundar Reddy sir, to kindly felicitate our second speaker, Professor N.N. Chakravarti, sir, with garland and shawl. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I'm going to present brief bio of the speakers and president of this session. We know very well that this session is being presided by Professor D.N. Tiwari, sir, former head, Department of Philosophy and Religion, Banaras Hindu University. His area of philosophical interest is philosophy of language, especially Bhartrihari's philosophy. He has authored a number of books and he has published more than 130 papers in reputed international and national journals of philosophy. Now, the first speaker of this session is Professor R.C. Pradhan, sir, former professor of philosophy at the University of Hyderabad. He had also previously taught at Utkal University and Karnataka University. He took his PhD in 1977 from Banaras Hindu University and had his postdoctoral studies at the University of Oxford as a Commonwealth Academic Staff Fellow during 1990-91. He was also a member secretary of the Indian Council of Philosophical Research, New Delhi during 2000 to 2003. His area of philosophical interest is philosophy of language, philosophy of mind, and Wittgenstein. He has authored a number of books. He has contributed many research papers to journals in philosophy. He has published a number of research papers in reputed international and national journals of philosophy. And the second speaker of this session is Professor Nirmala Narayan Chakrabarti, sir, former Vice Chancellor, Rabindranath Bharati University, Kolkata, where he is presently Professor of Philosophy. His research areas include philosophy of language, classical Indian and Western analytical epistemology, philosophy of religion, environmental ethics. He is the former member secretary, Indian Council of Philosophical Research, New Delhi. Now, I request Professor R.C. Pradhan to please come and deliver his lecture. Thank you, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Kalpana, for the nice introduction. Uh, Professor D. N. Tiwari, my good friend, the chairperson of the session, and Professor Chakrabarti, the co-speaker of the session, and esteemed scholars in the audience, students, research scholars, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, the I will not read out the paper. I will speak out the main contents of this paper. What I am trying to do in this paper is to oppose naturalism in semantics. So the title of the paper is Semantics Denaturalized, Quinean Holism, Meaning Holism and Beyond. There are two main issues which I will address. First, whether semantics can be absolutely naturalized, or is there any scope for what we may call normativity in semantics. So I will argue for a normative semantics rather than for a naturalized semantics. The second, which I will argue, is that though meaning holism is universally acceptable, as we have known that even Bhartrihari is a holist, and there are many holists in the horizon, in the semantic horizon. But then naturalism is the right way to defend holism. That will be the question I will address. And I will suggest that perhaps there is an alternative to a naturalized way of uh, having meaning holism. Let me come to the first point. Uh, when Quine and followers of Quine really say that semantics is naturalized, just as he claims that epistemology also is naturalized, what does he really mean? He means that meaning and rest of what we call language is a part of nature. That is, these are natural products or byproducts of human behavior. So in that sense, language for him comes as a natural entity in the world. Now, this is a point which has to be noted seriously, because though definitely language is, in a sense, something natural to man and natural to the universe, but that doesn't mean that language remains at the level of uh, as a natural object, because language is a growing phenomenon, and in the process of its growth, it also acquires many normative features like meaning and truth. So though language has a very humble beginning in the human behavior, but it doesn't end in human behavior. Quine's naturalized semantics suggests that human behavior is the source of semantics, that is the be all and end all of semantics. It's beginning from human behavior. By human behavior, he means the physical behavior. And he talks of stimulus and response behavior. It's a very crude way of suggesting that human beings use language as a matter of stimulus response behavior. Somebody utters a word like Gavagai. Yesterday, Professor Sen has really given the right situation for Quinean semantics. There is a stimulus to us. The field linguist is getting a stimulus when somebody says Gavagai. But this is a very minimalist way of understanding how we understand a word. It is not the stimulus which really is the primary entity here, but it is something more than the stimulus. And my response to the other speaker is not just a stimulus related response. It is something more. I think to picturize linguistic behavior in terms of stimulus and response is too minimalist. And though Quine may be right in suggesting that this is how language begins, but that this is not how language ends. So in that sense, the question of normativity is bound to crop up. So in a sense, the behaviorist theory of language has never really got off, because the age of behaviorism has really died with the death of, let's say, the Quinean naturalism. Because Skinner, we know, one of the defenders of linguistic behaviorism, and how he has been criticized by Chomsky, for example. So Chomskyan linguistics really brought the end to the era of behaviorism in linguistic studies. In philosophy of mind, also behaviorism has never taken us very far. And the last logical behaviorist was Ryle. And though people say that Wittgenstein himself was a behaviorist, but that is not the truth. So in a sense, Ryle could be taken as the last behaviorist, as a logical part of logical behaviorism. So in a behaviorism has never really solved the problem of language, nor the problem of meaning. Let us come to the notion of meaning. How Quine treats meaning. He suggests that meaning is basically stimulus meaning. So meaning arises in human behavior and also stays in human behavior. So the entire structure of meaning will be structure of human behavior. But how does it look really impressive? How does it look impressive really? No. Meaning far exceeds the domain of behavior. So in the sense that when meaning takes place for a sentence or a word, as we'll come to the question of primacy of sentences over the words, but the point that we have to note is that if meaning is same as stimulus, then there is nothing more than what is stimulus is. In a sense, it is a kind of reductionism, because Quine is defending meaning against the positivist reductionist theory through the route of really holism. But his initial proposition that meaning itself is nothing but human behavior, that itself is a reductionist dogma. So the dogma that he is refuting in the two dogmas called reductionism actually really comes back in the back door as a kind of reductionism, because meaning is reduced to behavior. Now, we shall see that meaning is not exactly behavior. Before we use language, or before what we call have a linguistic behavior, meaning is already presupposed. So there is some kind of priority of meaning over behavior. We will not behave in a linguistic way. I will not respond to a speaker unless I know what the speaker is meaning. So I cannot really reduce meaning to the stimulus response mechanism itself. So in that sense, any theory of meaning which depends entirely on behavior will really fall to the ground. The second question which Quine has to really respond to, that means anybody who defends Quine has to respond to, is that if meaning is a myth, is a part of the myth of the museum, because he suggests that meaning is a museum piece. Meaning, if you take it away from human behavior, becomes a museum piece, in the sense that it becomes Platonic, or it becomes some kind of mysterious entity. But is it so? Is meaning so mysterious that we can never catch it? Is the meaning of a sentence or of a language as a whole, as Quine suggests, if meaning is just a mysterious entity, is a part of the myth of a museum, then perhaps that may be a way of construing meaning, in the sense of denying meaning its own autonomy, its own significance. Meaning need not be a mysterious entity. It is as visible as anything could be in language itself. So if we take language seriously, then meaning also is an ongoing process in the language use itself. Meaning is not use itself. That is a myth that interpreters of Wittgenstein suggest. Meaning is not the use itself. Meaning is explained through use. So in that sense, meaning must be prior to use, meaning must be prior to human behavior. Therefore, Quine's suggestion that the myth of museum is really at the root of mentalized semantics, or what he calls the semantics or normative semantics, that is a wrong suggestion. So I think death of the museum, myth of the museum is the death of semantic itself. And that is what a normative semantist is likely to suggest. So let us come to his second proposition, that meaning is holistic. This is a proposition which is widely accepted. Not only he himself is a holist, though in a naturalistic way, but it was Wittgenstein who really suggested that holism is the right way of understanding language. You have to language as a language game, not proposition by proposition. And you have to understand language as a whole. The word whole here has to be understood, of course, in a very contextual manner. Whole of English doesn't mean that the entire dictionary of English is before me. No, it means that language has to be treated not piecemeal, but in a holistic way. The word whole has to be understood in the context. Now, Quine's suggestion is very well accepted, including it is accepted by Davidson himself, and many others will accept that holism is a right way of understanding language and meaning. But the point is that if we talk of naturalistic origin of language, then the only holism that we can have, which Quine himself propounds in the two dogmas of empiricism, it will be some kind of a confirmation holism or a verificationist holism. That means when the question of verification of language against experience comes, you become holist. Theory holism is really a part of an empiricist dogma also, because instead of verificationism, which is really atomistic, you have suggested only a holistic proposal keeping the same empiricist verificationist line. But is this justified? Because if confirmation holism is the only holism in the horizon, then we are really saying that language will come together as a whole only when it faces the world. That is the experience of the world. But why that? Before that also it is holistic. Before confirmation comes, it is already holistically organized. That means language has a typical grammatical normative way of organizing itself as a whole. Just as any language for that matter, whether Hindi, English or Sanskrit, not a single sentence will stand alone. A bunch of sentences will stand alone, will be standing there, a bunch of sentences. One sentence will lead to another, another will lead to another. So in a sense, we will have to, in a what Quine rightly suggests is the corporate body of language. A corporate body you have to understand. That corporate body be maximal, that can be minimal, and we do not have a control over the corporate body. It depends on our requirement. So in a sense, if you take the whole theory of science, as he suggests, the whole language itself as a theory for him is a theory of the world. That is allowed. You can do that because that is imaginative extension of the sentential structure of a language. So in that sense, confirmation holism is only tip of an iceberg. Holism is really striking language at another place, that is at the grammatical level. When you introduce language, we introduce logic also, because the sentences have to be connected. And the connectives also will bring the structure of language in a holistic way. So in that sense, grammar takes care of the holistic aspect of language. Grammar really ensures that our language is a whole structure. And it is not experience which will give us the holistic structure. Experience is only the minimal feature of an empirical language. What happens to the rest of the language? Empirical language is only a fragment of the language. The entire structure of language is not empirically facing the barrage of experiences, as Quine suggests. It will face the barrage of experience if we restrict the entire language only to scientific language based on the occasion sentences, or what Professor Sahu was telling, the occasional sentences, or the observation sentences. Observation sentences only come at the very root of a language when it is facing the word. But before that, language has a long grammatical preparation to take care of many things which are immediately not to be verified at all. We don't verify our religious language, for example. We don't go to verify our moral language. We don't verify our logic. We don't verify our mathematics. Only a small fragment of language is to be verified. So in that sense, holism has a larger horizon that Quinean confirmation holism has captured. But the matter remains that we are all, in a sense, by default, holists. Whether we accept or not, language always acts as a corporate body, acts as a whole. Now here the question arises whether Quine is really a extreme holist or a moderate holist. Now that debate has come. So many suggest that in the two dogmas he was a extreme holist, but in later on when he revised his own program, he became modest. That means it is a kind of modest kind of holism. You need not talk of the entire language. You can talk of that part of the language which you are dealing with. Maybe in a sense, moderate holism is most acceptable. But in philosophy, whether it is moderate or extreme, it is a matter of choice. I can say that the whole language comes at the backdrop of any sentence that I utter. The whole language invisibly comes. Not that I always have a full eye on the entire language, but the language is invisibly standing there. So what will prevent me if I am a extreme holist? So in a sense, whether Quine is an extreme holist or a moderate holist is a non sequitur. It doesn't make us any more comfortable. All that we can say that Quine and holism, if it is entirely dependent on naturalism, maybe it will face shortcomings. So if Quine and semantics has to be broadened, and we are always, philosophy is like a Neurath boat really, as he suggests, that we can go on expanding. And Quine has given us the image of a language that is ever-growing language. It is not a static entity. And therefore, we can say that normativity has to creep in into language to save language itself. So normativity is not at the cost of empiricality or the cost of naturality of language. Rather, it will enhance the prestige of language. It will take language it will it will strengthen language if we add more and more semantic rules to it, if we add more and more logical rules to it. And that is how language logic is growing. So it is growing not in a naturalistic way, because that is a very limiting way. It is growing in a normative way. So this is how I perceive the situation. So my conclusion will be this, that let us read Quine in the whole welcome spirit, because why Quine is one of the most absorbing authors. If you read his book, you would like to read the entire book. That is a way. It's not, he doesn't make his language difficult. It's very absorbing. It is a literary piece. That's why he says language is a social art. I think his own books are a part of artistic creation. So in that sense, all of us should read. But we must remember that Quine has a broad vision of language. And though he may not be saying so, he has already normativity as his back of the mind, because logic plays a big role in his theory of language. So he is not closing his eyes to normativism, but because of his leanings towards empiricism, he's too much into Carnapianism, too much into the verificationist framework. I think he has opted for naturalism, which need not be the last word of any philosophical semantics. So with these words, uh, uh, I come to the conclusion that let's read Quine in a more open-minded way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your luminous and informative talk. Now the session is open for discussion. Please. Ma'am, good mic.
Thank you, sir. There is never a lecture that you give from which I am not excited by. So this is not a question. I just want to add something to your reservation about seeing linguistic behavior as merely behavior. The thing that you're saying, that there is a great deal of preparedness when we are responding to something which we recognize as a linguistic behavior. So I am reminded of a very beautiful point that Jennifer Hornsby makes in her book, Simple Mindedness. She is saying that I see a person going towards the switchboard and pressing his finger on the switch. And I am asking, why is he doing that? Well, I might be explaining a lot. I might be asking for explanation of a lot of things. Why are the muscles moving in this way? I may be asking that question. I may be asking the question, how is it that one corporeal body moves from one place to another one? This is not the question that the psychologist is asking. The psychologist is asking the question, why does he want to switch on the light? So already the conception of, desire to do something is there. It is only because we already have that idea that we are trying to explain the behavior. We are, we are not explaining the muscle movement, but we are explaining the action. So I will respond to you uh, linguistically only if I recognize your act as a linguistic act, not just making of sounds. Then if you say ah, I say ah. It's not like that. If you say ah and I say what, sir, then I recognize it as a linguistic act. This is the first thing. And the other thing, I think I also tried to say that you cannot be an evidence foundationalist and still be a holist. I think this is a point you wanted to make, right, sir? Yeah, yeah.
No, you continue.
So thank you for elaborating the point. In fact, that is what I wanted to say, in the sense that there is a long preparation for that. And that preparation is definitely grammatical and also mental. You see, uh, uh, what Quine is missing is the presence of mind in language. So his anti-mentalism really is a price he is paying for his naturalism. So mind is a very, very strong concept in language, and Davidson has realized this, that the beliefs have been introduced, which Quine is against all intentional object, intentional with the S. So in that sense, I think you are right, that when I respond to somebody, I respond almost in a very grammatical way. That is, I understand the meaning, because meaning is not already in the behavior. Meaning is presupposed by behavior. So somebody's behavior is meaningful. That means meaning is already there. So in that sense, I think you are right, and I wanted to convey that the long preparation of grammar and also the mental element in grammar must not be forgotten, which Quine unfortunately forgets.
Draw disparities between C holism and semantic holism, where you're saying that confirmation holism. Uh, since Aquinas is a verificationist, and he was subscribing to confirmation holism, and you were trying to say that semantic holism should be seen distinct from confirmation holism. Perfect. But were you like, like contemporary cognitive linguists, are you also proposing that in order to propose a semantic holism, we need to have an a priori language structure, which, of course, has not been proposed by Quine. I mean, are you leading to that, though it was not made very visible?
So it is really the case that there are a priori elements in any grammatical structure. So in that sense, if we take semantic holism, it cannot rule out the a priori elements of language. You see, Quine is unfortunately is against what he calls first philosophy, which he means philosophy of the a priori variety, which I will call a transcendental variety. But actually, that is not the case. Nowhere transcendentalism has really rejected rejected naturalism. It has only added more to it, which naturalism misses. So, in that sense, for example, rule following. Rule following is not a natural entity. It is definitely a normative entity, either created by the community of speakers or it is deposited in a grammar, as Wittgenstein will say. So in that sense, it is a priori. Whatever its ultimate source, it is a priori, but not nature. Because natural laws are different from linguistic laws. The laws of logic will not be natural laws in any sense. So in that sense, I think semantic holism cannot be just a naturalized semantical holism. It has to be normativized semantic holism or meaning holism.
And we should not read Quine as someone who is taking
Yeah, in fact, you see, when we read Quine, we have to read within the framework that is we have. See, we cannot get rid of our grammar, get rid of our whole philosophical projects, and read Quine just as a novice. It is not possible. Quine is already himself suggests that there is a long preparation of language. Language is not just, it starts with mama, water, milk. That is the example he gives. But it doesn't stop there. It goes towards a very, very normative structure, really. Logic comes in. So in that sense, how can we really read Quine as a de novo? How can we read Quine as a naturalist? He is committed to naturalism, we are not. So we have to read him open-mindedly. Thank you.
Please use mic.
Yes, sir, actually you were talking about the logic and the relation between the language and logic. If we are seeing the logic as the first step or the first level of our mind, and if we are going forward about the mind and making the relation between mind and language, we can see and we can understand that actually the meaning of the mind will be always different from the person to person because our mind itself is different. So is it true?
No, it is not true. In the sense, the meaning, though we can say it is mental, because mentality will say that meaning is mental. It is a mental content, but that is also shareable. So that is also social in the sense that all of us share the same mental content. So what you mean by a word, I also understand, and what idea you have when you utter a word or a sentence, I do understand. So that means sociality is already ensured. So it cannot be the different meaning contents or different mental contexts for different people. In that case, neither mind can work nor language can work. There is no private language, as you know. Wittgenstein suggested there is no private language. Quine endorses it. Quine says language is a social art. It is social in structure. So in that sense, there is no privacy either in the mind or in language. Oh.
Thank you, sir. You have brought all the Quinean separate and isolated concept together. And in this context, I would like to draw to your attention another observation made by Quine, and that is to be is to be the value of a variables.
Yeah.
And now I would like you to relate this particular statement to his behaviorism.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
another point that I would like to, request you to relate is that how the meaning ascription, which is basically a normative activity,
Yes.
so that normativity, universality, and regularity parts can be taken care of within the framework of behaviorism in Quine.
Yes. Okay. So to the first question, you see, his idea of ontological commitment is explained through this. To be is to be the value of a variable. Now, this is fully explained in his On What There Is, that the famous paper On What There Is. Now, what was the effort that was making here? He accepted that there is an ontological reality of the physical bodies. The middle-sized physical bodies are his ontological entity, not sense data. He's against sense data theory. Physical bodies, middle-sized bodies. Yes. Yes, I'm coming to that. So these bodies are to be ontologically committed to. He is not committed to any abstract Platonic entities. So the to be a value of a variable like X or Y, that object need not be and must not be any abstract object. It be a physical object only. So he also talks about no object without identity. That is something, yeah, no object without identity. That means those objects have to be identified in space-time framework. So in that sense, to be the value of a variable is the sign of his idea that ontology remains intact. He is not anti-ontologist like any other pragmatist like Putnam. Putnam is ontological, anti-ontologist. In his book Ethics and Ontology, Ethics Without Ontology, he has suggested this. But Quine is fully committed to ontology. But this ontology is a physicalist ontology. And he says that this ontology also is a part of a theoretical framework. Your ontology is not theory free. So that's the how he says that ontology is relative to the conceptual framework. That is Quinean project. So that ontological relativity we have to accept. Second point is within empiricism, which virtually means verificationism in the old style of empiricism. And Quinean version of empiricism will be holistic empiricism, not atomistic empiricism. Both are, at least Quine is in a sense silent about the normative structures. He's silent because it doesn't suit him as a radical naturalist. But Karna, for example, is a semantist, but is a logical semantist. Carnap is committed to the old style semantics, in which synthetic analytic distinction will be there. It is a part of that old semantics, synthetic analytic distinction. And second, the other question which Carnap also addresses the external internal question debate, the distinction between external questions and internal questions. Now, these are part of the old, which is committed to analyticity and also committed to syntheticity. But Quine is ruling out analyticity. I think for him, all he's giving up the whole synthetic analytic distinction because it doesn't suit him. Because naturalized semantics, if it is allied with holism, then the entire structure is together. So why do you make this distinction? Why do partition language? That is his idea. And he says analyticity is never well defined. So in that sense, perhaps old classical empiricism can retain normativism, just as Carnap retains. But Quine, in his naturalized setup, is apparently averse to normativism, because he says intentional objects must be ruled out. And that is perhaps one way of ruling out normativism. And mentalized semantics, I think poor creature, Dr. Sen is a mentalist. Her book is committed to mentalism. So in that sense, mental has come back. This is the second revolution in philosophy of language. Mind has come back with a strong force. And Quine has really failed to anticipate the future turn of analytic philosophy itself, that it will go mentalistic. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very much amazed with your presentation. And, I can place myself between Professor Sahu and Sen and your presentation. And I can listen this debate for whole day. And the idea is that you have charged Quine with reductionism, and I can also feel that connotation that his naturalized semantics is a threat, which Professor Sen yesterday said that it is really not the case. So first, I'm inclined towards your presentation, towards the question which you raised, that actually the Quinean naturalism is a threat to a number of issues, whether it is logic or whether it is some transcendental pursuit. And Professor Sahu also confirmed it, whether it is mathematics or logic or whatever can be naturalized. So this particular thesis, I would like again provoke Professor Sahu and Sen that it is actually a threat. So how would they respond? They can respond me later. And second, the idea of meaning. I'm very much utopian in this regard, or like I'm much more platonic in this regard. Like if we just switch off whole of the humanity for a moment and we just regenerate humanity, do you think that the meaning will change of the language, or will it remain the same? I'm saying whether the meaning is eternal to the word or to the sentence, or it is something coming from only an empirical foundation or meaning byproduct of culture and society. This is the thing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. In fact, thank you for your nice comments. In fact, you talked of eternity. In fact, here is my friend, the expert on Bhartrihari. He was committed to eternity of Shabda and also meaning. So in that sense, eternity is not a bad word in philosophy. At least Bhartrihari will stand for it. Quine is against eternity. And as you said, you are a Platonist so far as meaning theory is concerned. I too subscribe to some kind of Platonism. If it is not what Magdal calls the rampant Platonism, but it is a moderate Platonism. You see, as soon as you introduce the notion of meaning, you are by default a Platonist. Because you are not saying meaning is a physical object. You are not saying meaning is in your mind. You are not saying physics is, sorry, meaning is somewhere standing on the tree. It is, meaning is there in a meaning space, in a logical space, which we can call grammatical space. Meaning is there, just as values are there. Some people say there are no values, we create it. No, we don't create values, we follow values. Similarly, meaning we don't create. We observe the meaning, we understand the meaning. Meaning, to have a meaning is to facilitate our understanding of what others say. So in that sense, meaning has to have some kind of autonomy, and which Quine is not ready to give. Quine reduces it to stimulus, sensation, or let's say some physical behavior, but that is a wrong choice. Thank you. Silence, yeah. You see, a man who is silent, she is after silence, so I must respond to her. You see, silence doesn't mean you don't know language. It's a man who is silent. He has only suspended language. He knows the language, but for practical purposes, for spiritual purposes, he or she suspends language. So it doesn't mean that she or he doesn't have any thought or doesn't have meaningful ideas to express. So meaning is not lost if you are silent. Language is not lost if you are silent. Rather, silence goes beyond language. So if you have a stage of beyond language, that is the language of science, language of silence. And you are silent only when you know language. And if you do not know the language, then you are neither silent nor anything else. You are dumb, deaf as well. But that scenario we are not envisaging now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I would
Thank you.
like to call upon. Now, I would like to call upon Professor Anand Chakravarti for presentation. Sir, please come.
या कुंदेन्दु तुषार हारधवला या शुभ्र वस्त्रावृता या वीणा वरदंड मंडित भुजा या श्वेत पद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शंकर प्रभृतिर्देवैः सदा वंदिता सामां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा. Once again, thanks Rajiv and his team for inviting me on this occasion. It's good to be back here. It's such short interval. Anyway, we have been talking about a lot of things about Bhartrihari, Quine, etc., for last since yesterday. What I would like to do very briefly, I'm not reading out the whole paper because time won't allow me to do that. You know that Quine's magnum opus, Word and Object, on page 9 of that book, in a footnote, Quine refers to an article by a man called John Burrow, and the article by this gentleman was published in I think in 1950s maybe, in Journal of the American Oriental Society, 51. Okay. And Quine refers to that article and appreciates that what Quine is trying to defend in that book, in Word and Object, has already been, defended by an ancient Indian grammarian. Quine doesn't mention the name. Quine is not aware of Bhartrihari, But later on, when I looked at that article by John Burrow, I saw that Burrow was actually talking about Bhartrihari's theory. So I thought, let us have an imaginary dialogue between these two, Quine and Bhartrihari. Uh, I wrote a paper long back on this. It was published in the ICPR. But I thought, even at the cost of repetition, maybe I should share this with you, because there are certain important points which I think any student on philosophy of language should be should be concerned with. And of course, as I strongly feel that this is one way of contemporaneizing classical Indian philosophical insights. Just saying Maharishi said that, Maharishi said that, Maharishi said that won't do now. Okay, so we have to locate them, we have to place them in the contemporary philosophical ambience and try to see what are the consequences that one could draw from this debate. So let us imagine that today in this seminar, Quine and Bhartrihari are present. So how would they try to defend each other's views? How would they try to interact their defense of what is known as holism? So that's what I have, I have tried to imagine that situation. So I have picked up the basic insights from Bhartrihari and the commentary of it, though I have articulated it, formulated it in my own way using the contemporary philosophical jargons. So it is Bhartrihari, but Bhartrihari plus. Okay. So in Bhartrihari, I'm not reading out the article. In Bhartrihari, we find Bhartrihari mentions 8 views about sentence meaning. What are those views? And we could guess that during Bhartrihari's time, maybe all these views were discussed, defended by his contemporaries. First view: sentence meaning is to be explained in terms of the verb akhyata. This is one view. The second view: collection of words, padasanghata, is what constitutes sentence meaning. The third view: the universal or jati residing in the collection of the words is what constitutes the sentence meaning. Fourth view that Bhartrihari mentions: the indivisible photo is what the sentence meaning is all about. Fifth view: the order or padakrama is in the words is what the sentence meaning is all about. The sixth view: the sentence meaning is that what we bring together through the order of the words in our mind. Seventh view: the sentence meaning is manifest in the first uttered word, pratamocharita pada. And the eighth view, the last view that Bhartrihari mentions, the expectancy or akanksha in hearing in the distinct words is what the sentence meaning is all about. So these are the 8 views that Bhartrihari mentions in Bhartrihari, and in the Tika there are lots of explanations of each of these views. And out of these 8 views, 3, 4, and 6, third, fourth, and sixth view. What are these views? Third view is the universal jati residing in the collection of the words is what constitutes the sentence meaning. This is the third view. Fourth view is the indivisible sphota is what the sentence meaning is all about. And sixth view is the sentence meaning is that what we bring together through the order of the words in our mind. So these 3 views are called by Bhartrihari as akhanda paksha, indivisibilism. And 1, 2, 5, 7, or 8, the rest of the views are called by Bhartrihari as khanda paksha, as a divisibilist. So this divisibilism, khanda paksha, could again be divided into 2 groups. One is the second group. Second group says padasanghata is what constitutes a meaning of the sentence. And the fifth view fifth view is the order, padakrama, is what the sentence meaning is all about. So padasanghata and padakrama, these two views are called by Bhartrihari as avihitannayavada. So according to Bhartrihari, avihitannayavada consists could be of these two kinds, padakrama and padasanghata. And 1, 7, or 8, that means the view that sentence meaning is to be explained in terms of the verb akyata, and the view the sentence meaning is manifest in the first uttered word prathamocharita pada, and the last view the expectancy or akanksha inhering in the distinct words is what the sentence meaning is all about. These three views are called by Bhartrihari as Anvita Abhidanavada. So now we have two varieties of Abhitannayavada and three varieties of Anvita Abhidanavada according to Bhartrihari. This formulation might be, might not be agreeable to all other later commentators, but this is Bhartrihari's view. I'm very, I'm losing my confidence in talking about Bhartrihari in front of Professor Tiwari. But anyway, correct me if I am wrong. Okay. Okay. So Bhartrihari argues that since I would refute the divisibilist, because Bhartrihari is Akhanda Pakshavadi, so he has to refute the Khanda Paksha. So that means he has to refute the Padavadins, right? Because he is a Vakyavadi. So let me explain their views first, Purva Paksha. Then he can refute them. Okay. So among the divisibilists, the Khanda Paksha, 2 and 5, as I said, 2 is Padasanghata, second view, and fifth view is the Padakrama Vadins. So these are known as Abhitanna Vadins. What do they say? What do they? How do they defend their position? Well, Padasanghata Vadins argue that the sentence meaning consists of the collection or totality of the words, henceforth, as I call them, collectivists. According to this view, a sentence is a collection of words, but certainly only words will not do. So it's not a mere collection. It's not a mere, I don't know whether we can use the Wittgensteinian word here, concatenation. Words must have some relation between them. The collection of these related words, expresses a related complete meaning. So words do have their own meanings. When words appear in a sentence, they bring their own meanings to the sentential context. But when the words come together in a sentence, the individual words come to express an additional meaning. This additional meaning was not present in the words taken individually. It is the collection or assemblage of the words that is responsible for the rise of this additional meaning. So it is the collection of the words that gives rise to sentence meaning. So this is the view, very briefly, of the Padasanghatavadins. Now, what do the Padakramavadins hold? Those who give importance to the order, grama, of words think that the sentence meaning is to be found in the order of the words. I call them successionists, because the succession among the words in a sentential context is important. This order or succession is not expressible in words. This order itself is not expressible, nor is this order audible. This order is a temporal property, and we ascribe this order to the words. The sentence is nothing over and above this order, the krama. The sentence meaning resides in this order. Individual words alone would not suffice for sentence meaning. We have to get the sentence meaning in this order. So the krama, the padakrama, is what constitutes the sentence meaning. But these are, all variations of what we call atomist theory. The other form of atomism is known as Anvitabhidana. This theory has three different forms, as mentioned earlier. People who think that the meaning of a sentence is embedded in the verb, akhyata, argue that on many occasions, from the mere verb, one can get the whole meaning of the sentence. Of course, the sentence does not merely consist of the verb, but since we can understand the nature and method of action from the mere verb, one could very well argue that the sentence meaning is inherent in the verb. The other words in a sentence are clarificatory of the action denoted by the verb. So akhyata becomes the central element in the sentence meaning. All other words in that sentence play an auxiliary role, specifying the method of action, performer, etc. The sentence meaning is to be found in the verb alone. So this is one form of Abhidhanvada. The second form of the connected designation. This is Matilal's expression, connected designation. The second form of connected designation theory is the view that the sentence meaning is embedded in the very first uttered word, prathamoccharita pada. The first uttered word does not only denote its meaning, it also denotes the meaning of the whole sentence. Later uttered words only clarify, explicate the meaning of the first uttered word. They do not add anything new to it. The third form of connected designation is the view that words do exist independent of the sentences where they occur. But since a word expects another, the collection of these expectant words gives rise to the sentence meaning. All the words uttered at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end have their own independent meanings. When these words occur in a sentence, then each word being related with other words, sakanksha pada, manifests the sentence meaning. So all these three different forms of connected designation theory hold that the meaning of a word is always connected with the meaning of other words. And we get to know the meaning of the sentence from the meaning of a word as related to the meanings of other words. So the meaning of a word is always related to the meaning of the other word, and we understand the meaning of a sentence only through the word as related to each other. So this is why all these three views are known as, Anvita Vidhana. Now, I'm skipping parts of it. What are the arguments of Bhartrihari against Padavadi? How would Bhartrihari, try to refute the Khanda Paksha? As I reconstructed Bhartrihari's arguments, there are three parts of this argument. One is the logical one, the other is the epistemological one, and the other is the pragmatic one. What is the logical argument? Why Bhartrihari against Khanda Paksha, against Padavadis? Well, we get to know the object only through the knowledge of the word and its meaning. In a sentence, it is through adding the meanings of the later words to those of the former words that we come to know the meaning of a sentence. Understanding the meaning of a sentence is a cumulative process. In this accumulation, former words shed their individual meanings. Unless we accept this individual meaning dropping off, I think yesterday Professor Pandey was referring to this view when he was talking about this grammarian theory. So the sentence meaning would not arise at all. But through this falling off, when we come to the last word of the sentence, since all the previous words have shed their meanings, we have to say that the sentence meaning is generated out of meaningless words. So if you are Padavadin, you have to face this consequence. This is an abstract position. The main point that Bhartrihari would like to make here is that if one accepts that words do have meaning of their own, then in the cumulative process of grasping the meaning of a sentence, former words by giving up their own meanings, add bit by bit to the totality of the sentence meaning. So it is by dropping off the meanings of the words that we get the sentence meaning. In this continuous process of letting drop or casting off their meanings, when you come to the last word, all the previous words have given up their own meanings. Consequently, the sentence meaning could be said to be produced by units that have dropped their meanings. And this is something we surely cannot accept. So this is what I call logical argument against the Padavadis. What is the epistemological argument? Individual words do not have their constant meaning. So he is now referring to the constancy of meaning. In the word, this is Bhartrihari's own example, Raja Purusha. Raja means someone related to the royal family, but Raja could also be interpreted as a word meaning to stay, Viraja. I think this is the another sense of the word. Then Raja Purusha could mean, oh man, you stay. But this is not what we mean by the word Raja Purusha. And nor it is intended, nor is it the intended meaning. Had words been individually meaningful, Raja and Purusha, this possibility would remain. Moreover, often we know the meaning. This is another good example that Bhartrihari, or I have to remember whether it was Bhartrihari's own example or the commentators. Often we know the meaning of a compound word without knowing the meaning of the elements in it. I think this is there are plenty of examples in all Indian languages. And the example that we find in the text is Ashwakarna. Ashwakarna is actually a name of a tree, right? But Bhartrihari says that one does not need to know the meaning of Ashwa and Karna in order to know the meaning of the term Ashwakarna. So the expression, the tree which has leaves like the ears of horse, is only explanatory. And knowledge of it is not a prerequisite to the knowledge of the meaning of Ashwakarna. There are a lot more discussions available in the commentary. I'm not getting into that details. And the last argument, pragmatic argument, as I call it. In order to attain the knowledge of the science of language, Vyakarana, we have to read the relevant literature, grammar, etc. Once through the knowledge of grammar, we get to know the construction of word, individual words hardly play a role anymore. Now, this grammar can be of many kinds, Paninians, non-Paninians, etc. And all these grammatical rules depend on sentence. Each of these different kinds of grammar depends for justification on their own rules of sentential analysis. It is through sentence and its meaning that we think of a word. Sentence and its meaning is central to grammatical analysis. So word and its meaning are only our construction. Now, I have discussed in great details about the ramifications of each of these arguments that Bhartrihari offers against Padavadins, against Khandapaksha. Now Quine enters the scene. Quine is, telling, this is written in dialogical form, so Quine is, telling Bhartrihari, as a grammarian, you are primarily interested in natural language. Your arguments, means Bhartrihari's arguments, rest on the nuances of spoken language. I am primarily interested in the structure of a physical theory. Fine. While discussing such a structure, I have talked about holism of a physical theory. Remember when he introduced holism in Two Dogmas, it was in the context of the description of a physicalistic theory. And that too in the context of confirmation of a physical theory. I might call this confirmation holism. Podor and Lipor in their book Holism, talks about detail an argument about all the different kinds of holism that one finds in Quine. But this confirmation holism implies that the unit of meaning is not an individual sentence, rather a group or set of sentences. And this is what I call meaning holism. So for me, I mean, as far as my understanding of Quine is concerned, I mean, it might sound very odd, but I think Quine was not primarily interested in language. Okay, as neither Frege was interested in the language. Okay, they came from mathematics and logic, so they had some issues in logic and mathematics that they had to address. So for Quine, the most important job was to have a viable philosophical defense of how a theory in physical science works. This is what Quine's main aim was. So notice, Quine is saying, notice, when I talk of meaning holism, I talk of a large chunk of a theory facing the tribunal of experience in order to receive its confirmation. So my holism, Quine's holism, extends over a set of sentences, whereas your holism, Bhartrihari's holism, extends over a single whole sentence. I don't know whether Bhartrihari anywhere talks about holism in the context of large set of sentences. I might call my holism theory holism, Quine's, and your version, Bhartrihari's version, sentence holism. In a way, my theory holism precisely denies what your holism says. Correct me if I am wrong. But then we are on the same board, and our difference lies in our different perspectives. Mine is physicalist, and Quine, till death, remained an empiricist. I think in the 1992 book, which is the latest perhaps book, he called himself unrepentant empiricist. He doesn't repent. Okay. So mine is physicalist, while your Bhartrihari's perspective is linguistic. It looks as though, now Quine is a little bit of trying to understand Bhartrihari. It looks as though that your sentence holism comes close to Frege's context principle. For both of you, both Frege and Bhartrihari, emphasize the importance of the sentential whole in understanding meaning. Frege, unlike me, means Quine, unlike Quine, was interested in coming up with a theory of number as the foundation of mathematics. It is interesting phenomenon that mathematics, this is also, I think, this speaks a lot about culture in general. It's an interesting phenomenon that mathematics has been the ideal in Western philosophical tradition. Whereas it seems that linguistics, and linguistics in the sense of Vyakarana, has been the, and of course with special emphasis on Sanskrit language, has been the rallying point in Indian philosophical tradition. Vyakaran was a must for any academic in classical India. I mean, there's a funny joke about Vyakarana says that tasmai kanya nadiyadam. You should not get your son or daughter marry off to a person who doesn't know Vyakarana. So Vyakaran was of extreme importance in classical Indian tradition, and I think a lot of people have said that, and I believe in that many of the Nyaya epistemological theories are actually parasitic on the grammatical structure of Sanskrit language. So it's the language that really, the structure of Sanskrit language has really a lot to contribute to the epistemological theories. So, so in line with your tradition, you have embraced linguistic viewpoint, Bhartrihari. Since I am primarily interested in explaining how the meager input on our sensory surface gives rise to torrential output in the form of a complicated theory of the external world, physical theory becomes my central concern. I have departed from my tradition, the result of which is my denial of analytic synthetic distinction. Quine's physicalism led him to deny analytic synthetic distinction. However, since I believe in the parallelism of confirmation of a physical theory and our language learning mechanism, this is where Chomsky really, severely criticized Quine. My confirmation holism, Quine's confirmation holism, spills over to meaning holism of natural language. So this is the connection between confirmation holism and meaning holism. I make a thought experiment of radical translation. Yesterday we heard about radical translation. My friend Donald Davidson has worked out meaning holism in detail to give us a theory of interpretation of natural language. Since Davidson is primarily interested in understanding natural language, and he was very emphatic on that, he might be sympathetic to your approach. I mean, Quine is saying, at least I'm making Quine say that maybe Davidsonian approach might be more sympathetic to Bhartrihari's approach. Since Davidson wants to have a theory of meaning in the sense of theory of understanding, yesterday we heard about that, theory of meaning that suffices for one's linguistic knowledge. If this is the theory of meaning that Davidson is trying to offer, Davidson might share Bhartrihari's concern for an explanation of our linguistic behavior. I shall just raise 3 questions. I'm not going to the detailed plausible answers that could be offered on behalf of Quine and on behalf of Bhartrihari. 3 questions. These 3 questions are, very important in analytic philosophy of language, and I think Damit, throws out these 3 questions. 1, does a word have meaning? Have is the important word. Does a word have meaning only in the context of a sentence? This is one question. The second question is, can we know the meaning? We're talking about knowledge of meaning. Know the meaning of a word only by knowing the meaning of a sentence where the word occurs. This is the second question. The third question is, assuming that individual words have meaning, how do we know the meaning of the sentence, which is a collection of individual words? Now, one can, locate Frege, how he is trying to respond to these 3 questions. One can locate Bhartrihari, how he is trying to respond to these 3 questions. So having meaning, knowing meaning, and assuming the words have meaning, how do we come to have the knowledge of the meaning of the sentence? So let me just end with 5 minutes more. Okay, let me just end by bringing in a bit of Damit's intervention here. Now, it seems, I'm talking on behalf of Bhartrihari, it seems that both Avihita Anvaya and Annita Vidhana, both are concerned with the third question. What is the third question? Assuming that the individual words have meaning, how can we account for the knowledge of the meaning of the whole sentence? Given that words have their independent meanings, how can we account for our understanding the meaning of the whole sentence? With regard to the first and second question, first question was having the meaning, second question was knowing the meaning. With with regard to the first and second question, Quine, at least insofar as Bhartrihari is concerned, Quine seems to make a distinction between having meaning and knowing meaning. For me, for Bhartrihari, this distinction is hardly tenable. Since I'm concerned with language, where language is not an abstract system, rather a medium through which human beings communicate with each other, an account of language must be amenable to intersubjective evidence. I'm just, putting these words in the mouth of Bhartrihari. When an expression has a meaning, it only means that the expression carries a certain semantic import with it in linguistic behavior. How having meaning recedes into knowing meaning, and knowing meaning gets manifest in linguistic behavior. This is why Bhartrihari's arguments for holism run into both having meaning and knowing meaning. Remember those three arguments that Bhartrihari gives while refuting the Padavadids. Now, Quine intervenes here, and he adds that one could, of course, steer a middle path, arguing that both atomism and holism are important. Both Khanda Paksha and Akhanda Paksha are important. How? Michael Dummett has made a distinction between explanation of meaning and recognition of meaning. Very important distinction Michael Dummett makes. Explanation is a theoretical endeavor to give a philosophical description of a practical ability. And in this context, the practical ability consists in understanding and communicating meaning through linguistic behavior. But recognition implies our actual language learning mechanism that we all go through while learning a language. One is concerned with theory building, the other is concerned with practical ability. These two are undoubtedly related, but they need not necessarily have an isomorphic relation. We do not take a lesson on philosophy of language while learning a language. So Dummett's point is that maybe when we say, when we are trying to do a philosophical theory about our knowledge of language, sentential unit becomes the primary focus of meaning. So here word theory becomes very important. But in the case of recognition or learning the meaning, through which we perform our practical ability of linguistic behavior, perhaps meaning of individual words becomes important. And this is where we deviate from Bhartrihari and become sympathetic to Padavadins. So, this is one way of looking at the debate between Padavadin and Vakyavadin. Although, I'm not sure how far Bhartrihari would agree with my, reinterpretation of Bhartrihari in the context of Quinean view on holism about language. But I am again, a bit of caution, I think, if I can propose that it is the confirmation holism that is crucial in Quine, and meaning holism is a consequence, is a philosophical consequence of confirmation holism. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this quixotic talk, sir. Now the session is open for discussion. Sorry? Okay, okay. There's no question online. Okay. Yes, yes, yes.
It's not a question, sir. It's just a clarification only. So by considering the divisibility theory of meaning, let's assume a situation where a word has multiple meanings, maybe a vague word. So if word helps us to get the meaning when somebody reads a proposition, but we choose only one word to get a meaning, and that word happens to be vague. So what theory we should use to obtain the correct meaning of the proposition? Thank you.
Shall we Will we take all the questions together? And that might save time, so that's why.
You can.
So the imaginary dialogue between Bhartrihari and Quine is very interesting. And in fact, sir, I was expecting that there will be one-to-one dialogue. One will be asking a question, another will be answering that. Anyway, but sir, in that particular dialogue, I have two or three questions, sir. What would be the takeoff of Bhartrihari in handling indeterminacy kind of situation that Quine talks about? Secondly, sir, in one of his interview, Quine has told that philosophy of science is philosophy enough, and meaning thereby that if you are doing philosophical analysis of science, then that is all an end of for philosophy. So now this kind of analytical analysis that Bhartrihari will be engaged in understanding the sentence meaning or word meaning uh, will not be count much philosophical in Quinean perspective. So if Bhartrihari is asked a question like by Quine that what you are doing about the philosophy of language is mostly does not fall within the philosophy. So what would be the answer? One answer by Bhartrihari, sir. And sir, you talk about 10 possible theories of in the beginning of your presentation, and I remember third one is the universal meaning based on universality, and another point is the meaning based on individual that kind of thing words. But sir, these two things theory is supposed to be contradictory. Apparently, there is a contradiction. So if meaning comes from universality, universal ideas, then the individual meaning, the meaning that lies in the individual or the members of a particular set will not be very significant, sir. So I don't know. These are the queries that arise from my own confusion rather. So I need clarification from you, sir.
This division between knowing and recognition, recognizing something, um, and where do we place Davidson's understanding, the concept of understanding and meaning, whether they are simultaneously, I mean, where recognition can replace understanding.
Much for all these questions, and these are very important questions that one need to address about vagueness. This is there's a huge area about the role that the idea of vagueness plays in philosophy of language and logic and logic. Um, I'm really I don't know whether in the text itself, in the Bhartrihari itself, whether Professor Tiwari is here, he might enlighten us on this. Whether he does talk about the existence of vague words in language, referring to some Panini Sutra, etc. But at least this much I can say that on behalf of Quine, he would not tolerate existence of any what we call vague terms in his physicalist theory, because that will threaten the logic which is embedded in so far as the connection between sentences in the physical theory is concerned. So he would be completely opposed to this. And actually, when we was talking against all kinds of intentional entities with S. This was his motive, because intentional entities, often carry a large amount of vagueness with it. And that is why any serious physicalist theory must try to get rid of this. And this is one of the criticisms that Quine makes against his best friend, philosopher Carnap. I remember in one of the conversations, Quine actually was telling that at one point Carnap asked him, "Why are you so much opposed to intentional entities?" Actually, the very funny example Carnap gave to Quine. Quine himself recounted that, look, in our pathological laboratories, our doctors deal with things that we might not like. They deal with blood, urine, stool tests, but that doesn't mean they are less important. So why do you think that intentional entities are, not admissible in my physicalist theory? But Quine had his own answer. But this is I think, about vagueness insofar as Quine is concerned. Indeterminacy. Yes, this is a very, very thought-provoking question. Um, you know, I think the background, what should I say, the background theory of all these thinkers, I mean, the classical Indian thinkers, especially of the Vyakarana school, they are ultimately concerned with the protection of the Vedic, knowledge, the proper explanation, understanding of the Vedic sentences. In the Mahabhashya, Patanjali, in the very beginning, says one of the most important purpose of Vyakarana is Veda Raksha. They are very clear about that. So that is why I hesitate sometimes using the English word grammar in place of Vyakarana. Vyakarana is something very different, at least in the context in which we use in Indian systems. Okay, so my hunch is that they wouldn't allow any element of indeterminacy, in at least indeterminacy in the sense in which Quine is talking about. They won't allow any indeterminacy creeping into their system, because in that case, that would threaten the efficacy of the entire Vedic setup. Okay. Well, yes, that actually brings in the second point that you raised. I think Professor P.K. Mukhopadhyay also raised this question yesterday, and in the paper that he referred to yesterday, he raised similar question, that whether is Bhartrihari a philosopher of language? This is an important question that students of Indian philosophy should really address. I mean, philosophy of language, in the sense which it emerged in 1920s, 1930s, it has its own historical background. I think one should not try to understand these movements independent of the intellectual landscape where these movements of views emerge. So, yes, in a sense, Professor Mukhopadhyay is right that that philosophy of language of the European variety that emerged in 1920s and 1930s was a reaction to the prevalence of Hegelian idealism and all sorts of idealism that were there in Europe in early 18th century, late 18th century. But so philosophy of language, in this sense, was born, was conceived in an anti-metaphysical spirit. It's true. But at the same time, the nature of metaphysics also kept on changing. Hegelian metaphysics is not the only brand of metaphysics that we have. Later on in 60s, we had what Strawson called descriptive metaphysics. And that descriptive metaphysics, okay, is not necessarily, I mean, that metaphysics doesn't have that kind of animosity with philosophy of language as we talk about these days. So I mean, I should qualify Professor Mukhopadhyay's statement in this way. And of course, it's undeniable. And there is, I think, we should be very clear about this. That all these philosophical systems, and not only philosophical systems. I was translating Prasthana Veda, and I can see Sangeet, Gandharva Veda. It is also aimed at moksha. So all the academic pursuits of India are ultimately aimed at Chaturvarga. So in Vyakarana is also aimed at that. And it's very clear in Bhartrihari in many of the statements that theory makes. So this question, whether it's a proper philosophy or proper philosophy of language or not, depends on the background theory that you are working with. About this distinction between explanation and recognition, I find it interesting because the way these later philosophers, and I mean Dummett, Davidson, and people who are their followers, they are using the expression theory of meaning. And Dummett is very clear that by theory of meaning, he means philosophy of language. Now, what is this theory of meaning that they are talking about? Okay. I mean, without getting into the details, one could come up with several interpretations of this expression, theory of meaning. But to put it very briefly, all these people, post-Dummett Davidson philosophers, when they talk about theory of meaning, they are talking about a theory of understanding. And what is a theory of understanding? A theory that would suffice to explain one's knowledge of language. What does one's knowledge of language consist in? One's knowledge of language consists in knowing the meaning of the words and the ability to communicate with others using that word. So if we have a theory of meaning that serves this purpose, that suffices to explain the knowledge that I have, on the basis of which I can claim to know the meaning of the sentences of a language, and also I can claim to communicate with others by using that language. If we can have a theory, that is the theory of meaning that we are looking for. And one of Dummett's fundamental criticisms against Quine's radical translation, and also against Davidson's radical interpretation, is that their theories fail to be a theory of understanding. Okay, and if we can, take into notice this distinction between Dummett's, distinction drawn by Dummett between explanation and recognition, that perhaps, I'm saying it very politely, perhaps these Padavadins and Vakyavadins, okay, and Bhartrihari was so, so emphatic on refuting the Padavadins, perhaps these two opposing views could be, could meet a common ground somewhere. Both of them could be said to have some role to play in constructing a theory of meaning, as Dummett Davidson are talking.
And the second thing is in Quine's system, absence of vagueness and the compulsive presence of indeterminacy, in the case of radical, they have to coexist. And I think you're not saying that this won't be found very matching, or in the Indian philosophical systems they won't be able to compromise between the two, that how they have to exist together. I think, did you mention that? So that was also the second question. Just to clarify.
See, as far as my understanding of Quine goes, indeterminacy and vagueness are not same.
No, they are not the same, but they go together.
No, Quine is not concerned.
Absence of vagueness and indeterminacy.
Quine
they
is
go together.
Quine is not concerned with vagueness at all. what?
Accept vagueness, right? That is a stand. Not admitting vagueness is also a stand, isn't it?
Well, Quine's interest is in constructing a philosophical defense of a physical theory, which does not allow any vagueness to creep into it. That's simple as that. Okay. Now, indeterminacy is not, this word might mean this word might mean that. That is not indeterminacy. Indeterminacy is, indeterminacy has been brought in by Quine to set the limit of the traditional account of meaning. So it's a limiting case.
Yes.
Okay. And insofar as indeterminacy is concerned, Quine again and again holds the view that there is no fact of the matter in terms of which you can, evaluate the alternative translation manuals, and you can accept one and reject others. Okay, so this is I think conceptually this is very different from vagueness.
Yes, I admit that. But my question was, how would the Indian philosophy, you were saying something, if I'm not mistaken, the Indian philosophical systems won't be very comfortable in accepting that both the absence of vagueness, how does it compulsively coexist with indeterminacy? I think you mentioned that, or maybe I was mistaken. Maybe will Bhartrihari be comfortable in accepting that absence of vagueness has to be there along with indeterminacy?
I think the general spirit is like that. Not only Bhartrihari, many others. The general spirit will be like that.
Okay, and the other one about intention object. How does it compulsively imbibe vagueness?
How does it compulsively
Imbibe vagueness, because that is what you suggested.
intention with S? Yes. Because for Carnap and for these people, intention is necessarily involves the contribution of individual mind.
I see.
Which in older days, I think Mill called it connotation. Remember Mill's distinction between connotation and denotation, right? So, and connotation is qualitative in nature. So if
That
intention,
is not Freudian sense. That is not
no, not at all. So that is the reason why Quine was so scary of using intentional idioms in his theory. And in fact, Quine's PhD thesis was how to convert part of Whitehead's Principia Mathematica into extensional language. Because Whitehead and Russell, they used certain intentional notions in their Principia Mathematica. And Quine was not happy with that. So Quine tried to reconstruct that certain parts of Principia Mathematica using extensional notions, setting aside the intentional idioms. So he was, from the very beginning, he was very much, opposed to this idea.
Okay, I have many other questions, but I'll.
We can discuss later on. Yes, because there are sessions later.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Now we know that the session is being presided by Professor D.N. Tiwari, sir. So I would like to call upon Professor Tiwari for presidential remark. Please come, sir.
You can use this mic. अच्छा ठीक. Speakers, Professor R.C. Pradhan and Professor Chakravarti. I was given the task to preside over this session, where two stalwarts of philosophy of language presented their views. So far as I know, and I know them personally, the first speaker, Professor R.C. Pradhan, and the second speaker, Professor Nirmal Narayan Chakravarti, both are well versed and
reputed scholars are both of the tradition, Indian philosophy of language and the Western philosophy of language. Giving some memory, I am not so qualified for making some remarks, presidential remarks on Professor R.C. Pradhan's paper. But I can say that he is master, and so easily he has clarified different types of theories of meaning, starting from behavioralism, holistic view of meaning, use theory of meaning, and later on so many types of meaning holism. The uniqueness of Professor Pradhan is that he always speaks something new. Even if he is speaking on Quine's denaturalized humanism, sometimes it looks that he puts his own ideas while interpreting Quine's holism. Actually, you see, you can give so many types of holistic theories to understand or to interpret the semantics. It's a very popular discipline nowadays, semantics. But the most important thing is that if you are giving a theory, you are a Quine or you are a Frege or you are Professor R.C. Pradhan, or you are going to evaluate them or to present them, must have to see what is the cognitive ground. As a philosopher, you have to see the theorists adapt to interpret the different types of. Is grammar the cognitive ground? Cognitive ground means the ground that is expressed in our mind when meaning flashes. So, if that is not determined, no theory can satisfy the readers, and theory will come and die. The problem is there in the root when they accept that language is different and meaning is different. Yes, meaning is not confined to language. Meaning is the object of senses. Meaning is the object of our speculation. Meaning is object of our psychology. Meaning is logical meaning, object of logical study, psychological meaning, so many types of meaning. But all types of meaning are relevant because we know it. How do we know it? Let us concentrate on that. Do we know a meaning isolated from language? Can you thought of any meaning isolated from language? This means language is not only a physical thing. It is not confined only to it is something as idea. So meaning is awareness by nature, and so is there is a form of meaning, a language that is also awareness. Somebody says that is psychological. Some says that is logical and like that. But any holism cannot survive if it does not accept meaning as of awareness by nature, because awareness is only the whole that can be that can that can be made understandable by analysis. So this was what Professor R.C. Pradhan intended to uh, say, but understanding meaning as a philosopher is first understanding language. Because for a philosopher, when they philosophize only with the ideas. They give a theory only with the ideas. And idea is a whole. It is of awareness in nature. So it is our limitation that we express it into words, so many long and all that. That is the external articulation of the ideas. So language is also, there is a level of language that is awareness, with which philosophers do when they philosophize. And both constitute the language as intelligible being and the meaning as intelligible, both forms the concept. So any concept to any theory that deals with the semantics should consider that the concept is a whole. Concept is a whole, and that has the potency to be analyzed into atoms, into parts. So Professor Pradhan very nicely gave arguments to refute the atomistic theory of semantics and move very swiftly to holistic theory of meaning. The beauty of Bhartrihari, as Professor Chakravarti nicely explained, he has referred all the opponents' theories. Sometimes a reader confused that, oh, this is Bhartrihari theories, but that is not. Bhartrihari has his own theory, but before that, he analyzes different theories popular at his time. So he has mentioned all types of atomistic theories and the holistic theory. But what uh, gives us incentive and excitement to read any theory of meaning is, as a philosopher, is that no meaning is free from language for a philosopher who deals with awareness concepts. But the Western, even the Indian systems of philosophy, systems, they consider language as different from meaning. Meaning is idea, but the language is representation or reference. It only refers to. And that is why the Western thinkers, they theorize reference as a logical reference, psychological reference, semantic reference, and so on. And so is representation is not what we usually understand by the word. Representation is something different. Representation is representational meaning. I think represented is maybe psychological, maybe logical, and accordingly, the semantic theorists move. So the primary question is, do we know a meaning without language, isolated from language? Okay, it is not suffice to accept that language represents meaning. Of what sort of that meaning? That is different. Is it atomic or is it holistic? Is it psychological? Is it truth? Is it fact? And so many things. So isolated from language. So in the pursuit of language, the meaning is always the meaning of the language. This comes to be accepted for doing any philosophy of language. So something is philosophy only when it is attached to the cognition. Without cognitive base, something maybe linguistic approach, maybe psychologistic approach, maybe behavioral approach, but not philosophy. So I will take only 1 minute more. So whether it is confirmation holism or any type of holism, I think that it will get a cognitive ground only when we have to accept that meaning is of the awareness in nature, and so they accept it also. Types of awareness, psychological or logical, that is different, but they also accept that meaning is awareness. What about language? So language having a grammar, to search out the meaning into the grammar, search out the meaning into the language as a whole. The word has not isolated meaning. So many discussions are there. But as concept level, meaning is also whole. It is only at articulate level that it is articulated through parts, and so they are made understandable through the analysis. So all the systems, everything we are doing here, discussing here, giving theories, that is the product of analysis. Analysis of the meaning and language. So many systems, what they are doing. They are just, because our mind can know only the intelligible being, and the intelligible being is confined only to the intelligible being of language and the meaning. So beyond that, our mind is not a knowledge producing factory or meaning producing factory, and so they also accept. And knowledge is not, or meaning is not, product of mind. Meaning only places. How it places? When the language places first. So meaning is what the language places. And understanding the meaning as places bound us to accept the meaning holism and the language holism. And then it can be interpreted. I think that you are young philosophers, you can think over that, so that holism can get developed as a pure philosophical theory. And I'm really fortunate to listen both of the philosophers of the time, Professor R.C. Pradhan ji and Professor Chakravarti ji. I'm enriched. However, I am condemned to say some words as a chair, but really I feel that I was not fit for that position in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now it's time for vote of thanks. So first of all, I would like to express my deep thanks to Professor R.C. Pradhan and Professor N.N. Chakravarti, sir, for their informative and luminous talk. Next, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the President of this session, Professor D.N. Tiwari, sir, for outstanding presidential remark. Next, I would like to express my deep thanks to the head of the department, faculty members from our university, our department, and other universities. And next, I express my deep thanks to dear students and research scholars for your active participation. Now, the next session will be convened by Rajiv Lochan Behra. So, I would like to invite Dr. Rajiv Lochan Behra for next session. Please come.